No. Good evening and welcome to tonight's meeting of the Major Applications Planning Committee. I'm Councillor Reggie Labour, the Committee Chairman. I'm going to do administration first and then I'll deal with the running order of tonight. Can I have apologies for absence first, please? There are none. Are there any declarations of interest?
Thank you, Chairman. I declare an interest in number 10 as an employee of Brunel University. I will be leaving the room.
Fortunately, it's the last item as well. Yeah, these things do work on occasions. The agenda we are taking is the one that was published, and there are no changes to it. All items are in part 1. Tonight's meeting is a meeting of the Planning Committee held in public. The rights to address the meeting are as set out in the Council's Constitution, as summarised in the committee papers, and as I will detail in a moment. I would advise you that tonight's meeting is being broadcast on the Council's YouTube channel, and therefore all members around this table will be visible and anyone speaking to us. If you're in the audience, you get left alone. Could I please ask that everybody does speak clearly into their microphones, otherwise we will have issues, A, with people in the audience hearing, and B, with it coming through on YouTube. In terms of the petitions, there's only one petition item tonight, and that is Waterloo Wharf, Waterloo Road. We are taking one petition on that of 5 minutes. You get 4 green, 1 minute amber, and at red I stop. There is a ward councillor in the room, and also I presume the developers are here as well. There are no speaking rights in addition for any of the other items. If we have a fire tonight, the fire exits are there, and that's where we will be heading. We're not expecting a fire drill, so we will take it as real if they go. Okay, a quick introduction to councillors for tonight, and then we will kick off. The voting councillors tonight, I only get a vote if there's a tie, so hopefully not. Starting on my far right, we have Councillor Brian Stead, David Yarrow, John Morgan, Henry Higgins, Ian Edwards, and on my left, Councillor Peter Curling, Janet Duncan, and John Oswald. Off the team tonight, Peter Loveday is doing highways, Neil McClellan from the Major Applications team is our presenter. James Roger, the Head of Planning, will provide us with advice. Kate Bolton, Democratic Services, is my clerk. Joyce Metra is my legal advisor, and Roisin Hogan is also sitting in from legal, but just to observe our proceedings. I'm going to proceed to item 6. This was deferred from our last meeting for a site visit, which has now taken place. I will direct petitioners, developers, and ward councillors, if I may. Members were comfortable with a lot of this. It does turn on size, height and bulk. That's just a hint that you might like to focus in on those, because that is what members really are looking at. In terms of the rest of what was presented by officers, members were comfortable with the officer report. So it is size, height, bulk, which was the reason it was deferred, and that's what we will be looking at tonight. That's where we will move to fairly quickly, and that's where the officer presentation will concentrate on, in addition to the additional information on overshadowing and so forth, which has been supplied since our last meeting, and hopefully copies have found their way towards the audience. Neil, if you want to take us through this one, please.
Sorry, thank you. This is a site to Waterloo Wharf. It's an application that seeks demolition of the existing buildings and the erection of a 4-storey building containing 52 flats. It includes 5 units, including a 3-bedroom flat has been secured as affordable housing, and a travel plan with a £20,000 bond has been agreed, as well as a contribution of £30,000 towards improvement of the Grand Union Hotel. Canal, sorry, I beg your pardon.
I was going to say, what hotel?
Sorry, I beg your pardon.
Canal side, yeah?
Yes, yeah.
What the application is, one later on.
That's an aerial view of the site. The site is located on the southern side of Rockingham Road, just off Waterloo Road and adjacent to the Grand Union Canal. That's the constraints map, so you can see that it's in the Uxbridge Moor Conservation Area, shaded in purple, and opposite the General Elliott's Pub, which is a Grade 2 listed building, which is where members viewed the site from. The site is close to Fastenage Park and Rockingham Recreation Ground, which are both within 5 minutes walking distance, and Uxbridge Town Centre is roughly 10 minutes walk away. The layout of the development lines with the canal and bends around, sorry, that's the existing buildings. I'll just quickly flick through those. There's some photos of the existing sheds that are on the site. Members will remember this from the site visit. That's the junction with Waterloo Road, and that's the current site entrance. And that's a view of the maisonettes in Waterloo Road with the shed behind it. That's the proposed site layout. The layout of the development lines with the canal and bends around to meet the building line of other properties along Rockingham Road. 53 parking spaces are provided, and for the residential element of the scheme, and 1 space for the proposed commercial element. The developer has included this commercial buffer. I keep flicking along. If you look at the top line to the right, doing my red light here, that is a small commercial unit which is intended to act as a buffer with the adjoining wharf site. The developer has included this commercial buffer between the residential element and the adjacent boatyard in order to, in part, to overcome a previous reason for refusal regarding the noise. The Council's noise officer is satisfied with the proposal, subject to conditions and a legal agreement to secure further noise attenuation measures. I'll keep flicking through this. So that's an image from the canal side. So you see that it's a 4-storey development, and the 2 wings, one is flat roofed on the left. On the right side, the top floor is in a mansard roof, and the middle section has these 3 gables. And these are other images of the proposal. It's a cross section overlaying of the current proposal with the outline of the existing sheds. And these are some comparative drawings that have been provided by the applicant that I showed to members on site. So it's not particularly clear, but you can see the dark grey is the layout of the existing buildings. You can see the large building, the large shed takes up most of that site, and you can just see a yellow dotted line, which is the layout of the proposed buildings. You can see that has moved a considerable distance away from the boundary with properties in Waterloo Road compared to the existing shed. Here's some more views. These are more comparative views, and these are 3 views taken from the rear boundary with properties in Waterloo Road. The grey is meant to signify the outline that would be visible from that boundary currently, and the yellow dotted line is the outline of what would be visible of the current proposal. So you can see it's actually meant to show that it's less impactful than the current scheme. And these are comparative massing, so basically it's just showing a 3D model of the existing sheds and then a 3D model below that of the proposal, and then the bottom right diagram is a cross-section through the site showing the section where the 3 gables are, and there is a purple dotted line below that which shows the height of the existing shed. And the ground floor units have their own private terraces and a formal communal garden adjacent to the canal. First and second floor levels would have a similar layout, while the third floor levels would be set back from the southern and northern ends to help reduce the overall bulk and mass of the scheme. The building has been broken up through a combination of staggered frontage and glazed intersections. This is overall, some of the revisions to the scheme since it was originally submitted include balconies being removed to protect from noise, widening of the landscape buffer along the boundary, setting back the building at the 3rd floor level to reduce its impact on neighbours. The whole building has been set back from the corner and a curved feature added, and also the towpath will be widened and boundary wall set back, which would aid in highway safety. To conclude, the proposal has overcome the previous reasons for refusal and is now considered to be acceptable in terms of principle, residential amenity and in transport terms. Therefore, the proposal has been recommended for approval.
If I can have the position on this one, please, Mrs. Tubb. If you press the button in the middle when you're ready, that microphone will light up. And then we'll start timers as you begin to talk, okay?
My name is Elizabeth Tubb and I've been a resident on Waterloo Road for over 10 years. Waterloo Road is a busy road used by residents as well as the wider community visiting local schools, nurseries, Waterloo Church and surrounding public houses. We will all be impacted by this proposed development. The local people and businesses I've spoken to about the wharf development have comments of a similar theme. The size and scale of the proposed development doesn't complement the established conservation area or the residential properties on Waterloo Road. The view from Rockingham Road is not an integrated visual. The buildings would have real standout. Those of us who have homes on Waterloo Road in front of the development are also hugely concerned about the imposing height of the three-storey, four-storey and five-storey gable design building and the impact of their height and being overlooked by these huge buildings will invade our privacy and impact our lives. The images that you can see here of the existing view from the canal, and this is a mock-up of what the developers have provided. And as you can see, there is substantial difference in height and scale, which I don't think were really very well communicated in the images that were provided by the developer. The height is quite an impressive difference. Many in the local community have also stressed their concern about the impact of this development on the Uxbridge Boat Centre and its dry dock, which is in operation 7 days a week, providing essential repairs and maintenance for boats using the canal along the region. A residential build on the proposed site could have severe consequences for the boat centre, who estimate that they could lose 50% of their business due to the nature and timing of the work that takes place there. The boatyard has been in situ for 200 years but will potentially not be sustainable in the long term, which I'm sure you will agree would be a huge loss. Waterloo Road is used by the local community as an access route to and from Cowley Mill and Rockingham Road. Although traffic calming measures are recently introduced in Waterloo Road, vehicles still travel at speed over the long ramps. The planned entrance to Waterloo Wharf site will be in a new position a little further away from Rockingham Road, but it will now be on a bend, and concern has been expressed about how safe this will be, given traffic speed and poor visibility for through traffic as well as those arriving and leaving the wharf site. Additionally, the traffic that residents the new development will generate is also a concern, especially at peak times when Rockingham and Cowley Mill roads already encounter daily traffic congestion. The proposed parking allocation within the development has been a hot topic with all local residents. There are 3 studios, 26 one-bedroom, 19 two-bedroom, 4 three-bedroom properties, plus a commercial unit with only 1 car parking space per unit. The plan also states that this commercial unit will have 10 employees. As I'm sure you will agree, this is a significant parking shortfall. Those living in Waterloo Road and the surrounding roads feel strongly that the allocated parking is insufficient and that we will be impacted, especially as the placement of the new entrance will mean that 12 metres of existing car parking space will be lost. There has also been no mention of excluding residents of Waterloo Wharf, both residents and employees at the commercial unit, from the residential parking scheme in this application. We are keen to understand why this has been omitted from this application, as we see this would be a vital element. It can be a challenge for local residents to park now, so having to factor in the overflow from the new development in the day, evening and at weekends is a key concern. Another element that hasn't been considered is that residents of the proposed development will have visitors. If they arrive by car, they will need to park somewhere also. Sole public transport usage is realistic within central London, but on the outskirts as we are, it is not unusual to use a car. Yes, we are close to the train station, but according to Google Maps, it takes 12 to 13 minutes and not the approximate 5 minutes previously stated to walk from Waterloo Road. And whilst Waterloo Wharf has a direct bus route from Uxbridge town centre to Slough, it's a limited service, finishing at 8 p.m. Monday to Saturday and 5:30 on Sundays, which means realistically a lot of visitors will travel by car. There is also concern in the community about the noise and pollution. We are fortunate that the wood merchants currently in situ at the proposed development site is only in operation Monday to Friday. However, a residential development will mean that there will be a huge amount of people in a relatively small space. This quiet area will be transformed into a hive of activity, possibly 24/7. The additional noise from development residents and emissions from cars arriving and leaving the development is also a big worry for those living nearby. Additionally, the strain on local amenities has been raised as a concern. Five previous standing applicants.
Could you wind that up, please?
Okay.
Because you have reached time. But I think you've made your point. Do you members have any questions? Yes, we do. Councillor Duncan.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for that. I just wanted to ask...
Turn your microphone off.
I just wanted to ask, you mentioned that it could well compromise the boatyard, which has been there for 200 years, which is next to this warehouse next to it, isn't it? Could you just say a little bit about why that would be compromised? I wasn't quite sure about that.
That would be because of they rent out areas within the boatyard for people when they're not using it for people to use. So people who work during the day come before work and after work and use the site. And also the fact that it's used by it's the only dry dock in the regional area, in the area. So for this region, it's a huge bonus that we have it available. But the reason that it would cause an issue is I think as it was explained to me, was the time that it would be used. At the moment, it can be used any time of the day or night, really, by people who come and use it, who rent space on the site there.
Could I ask what is to stop them using that boatyard at any time?
I understand that there'll be an agreement with Waterways that they might put a stop in place so they won't be able to operate at any time of the day or night.
I think we're straying beyond the knowledge of the petitioner, if I might stop it there. I get the point, but we are straying into things that the petitioner won't be able to satisfactorily answer. I think are actually covered in the report. Councillor Higgins.
Yes, Chairman, they are covered on page 27, but at the moment, what's the noise level from the boatyard when they're in operation for you as a resident?
I don't live very close to there, so for me it doesn't impact me. But I understand that there's a property on that site that dating back to like the late 80s, where the Waterways bought that property in order because the noise was so prevalent. The owners couldn't live there any longer, so they had to move out. And now that property is now leased, or by the boatyard have to pay rent to the Waterways in order to keep that property, but on the provision that no one lives there because it is so noisy.
Thank you. I don't see other hands, so thank you very much. The agents or the applicants for this one, please.
Thank you and good evening. My name is Sam Tiffin and I'm a Chartered Town Planner and Advisor to Howarth Homes, the applicant. Thank you for drawing your attention to the key issues being scale and height, and I'll focus my presentation on these issues. In relation to height, you will have appreciated on your site visit the comparative three-storey nature of the existing warehouse buildings, with its scale, which its scale is only further exacerbated by the significant plot coverage which dominates the site and its setting. In contrast, the proposed scheme doubles the separation distance in places to these neighbouring properties, which in turn will significantly improve and transform the setting of the site with an appealing open character in comparison. Furthermore, you will have also appreciated the area is not just characterised by two-storey buildings, as previously mentioned. The area is also characterised by numerous large premises of 3 to 4 storeys in scale, ranging from some flatted developments to a number of commercial units. We consider the enhancements in the separation distance, character of outlook and amenity appropriately compensate for the building being only one habitable storey higher than the existing warehouse buildings. The central gables are an architectural feature only and relatively low lying, and do not provide any habitable accommodation. You would also appreciate it on site. This conservation area is predominantly made up of a variety of building types, architectural styles and massing. The existing warehouse is a relatively poor quality building and is a closed facade on pretty much all sides. And it sits closer to the listed pub with a hard and stark landscape setting, all of which provides an unattractive and prominent feature within the locality. In contrast, the new development will make a positive contribution to the local character and, importantly, strengthen local distinctiveness. The provisions of a comprehensive landscaping scheme, as illustrated on our plans, will only further enhance the setting of the conservation area and the area in general. Planning and Listed Building and Conservation Area Act importantly requires local planning authorities to seek to determine applications favourably if they preserve or enhance the character or appearance of heritage assets. Paragraph 131 of the NPPF requires local planning authorities to take account of the desirability of new developments which make a positive contribution to local character and, again, importantly, distinctiveness. In this regard, the proposed high-quality wharf architecture and heritage benefits that this scheme will deliver will transform this rundown, hard and harsh industrial site and provide a scheme of real merit and purpose. Importantly, Historic England confirmed within their consultation response, and they stated, "We recognise the efforts that have been made to respond to the wharf architecture character of this part of the conservation area," and they specifically state, "in the tall, gable-fronted bays in the centre of the development." Drawing on this local industrial character in the interest of preserving the character of the conservation area. We'd like to think this consultation outside of the council offices goes a long way in supporting the height, specifically in its location, therefore further justifying the height of the building and confirming it's contextually appropriate within the setting of the conservation area. Giving consideration to other matters, members should note the scheme was extensively negotiated through pre-app and post-submission stages to ensure officers' support, which also incorporates taking account of objectors' comments. We have proposed improvement entrance and access points to the site, not only vehicular but pedestrian at the entrance of at the junction of Rockingham Road and Waterloo Road, incorporation of employment floor space while providing a physical buffer, and extensive acoustic and drainage strategies to deal with other constraints, not to mention the provision of much needed affordable homes. To conclude, the scheme, in our opinion, provides a development that the council will be proud of and has the potential to become not only a benchmark for heritage design but also a local landmark, contributing to a sense of place while significantly enhancing the conservation area and the setting of the adjacent listed building. The scheme has not just been about ticking policy boxes for us, but one which we have always considered as a unique opportunity and are honestly passionate to deliver. We therefore courteously request that members support your offer's professional assessment and vote to approve our application. Thank you.
Do members have any questions? Councillor Higgins.
Yeah, just one. I don't know whether you'll know this actually. How does one get access to the gables on this building? Is it connected? The reason I'm asking is it connected to the properties or is it connected with an access for management?
Considering the apartments will be leasehold, they won't be demised the area upstairs, so there won't be access. If access is needed, it will be provided within the communals for maintenance. But they are just features, and any maintenance should be able to be carried out externally.
They won't be used for storage or anything like that?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. I think the residents have proved to you that this development, with its height, size and bulk, will be totally out of sync with what they have at the moment. The height, size and bulk doesn't sit well with the character of the Uxbridge Moor Conservation Area. So I also support the residents' concerns on the parking issues. I think the issue with the boatyard is that the feeling is that the normal activities that happen in the boatyard, there will be complaints from the new development, and the boatyard will be elbowed out the way and forced to to stop business, and it's a vital link because it's the only one in the area. I think the nearest one is halfway up the Grand Union Canal, past Berkhamsted, round that way, somewhere like that. And I think what the residents feel is what is not being given enough consideration is the impact to current residents and businesses, not only upon the completion of this proposed development, but also during the many months of demolition and construction. And just as a final point, residents have been contacting Cameron estate agents. All the properties on Waterloo Wall site were sold on the day of the launch. This means deposits were paid and contracts exchanged, all without planning permission. How can this be ethical, particularly given the advice at the last meeting from the committee that they do not agree to this happening? I ask you to think very carefully about this. It is the conservation area. It's going to affect people's lives, and it is a big change. So please consider carefully.
Thank you. Members have any questions? Thank you very much. Okay. I'm going to open this one up in just a moment. I'll cover off 2 points. I would draw members' attention to the S106, in particular clause 5 with regard to the noise attenuation scheme for the boatyard. I will also, just for residents' benefit, the excluding of new residents from parking permits, unfortunately, is not supported by our legal colleagues, I'm afraid to say. So we have on occasion tried to do that in the past, but I know the legal advice is against that, so that's why it's not in there. If I could direct members, please, towards the principal consideration of this, which is size, height and bulk. Councillor Oswald, do you want to take me out?
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman. I have to say that the site visit was really useful. It gave me, certainly me, a better idea of what is there. I didn't realise, although I've been past this many, many times on the towpath, just how big the sheds, the existing sheds are. But anyway, and I've also, thanks to Neil McLennan, I printed off the BRE sunlight and shading report, and it's negligible. I don't think it will have any impact at all on the application. So that was a consideration that was a worry from the last meeting, Chairman. So that's that. I noticed that the boundary has been moved away from the houses in Waterloo Road. It certainly has, and it's been moved further back. However, the fourth floor, in my opinion, negates that. It negates that boundary change because the height, the mass, or the height, the size and the bulk will be seen quite clearly from the houses in Waterloo Road. Yeah, I know what they can see at the moment. I mean, I actually think this design is a really, really good fit somewhere else, if not somewhere else, without the fourth floor. And those are my main concerns. And Councillor Burles is absolutely right. This is a conservation area, and we should try and maintain conservation areas as much as we possibly can. And it's the size, the height and the bulk of this application, Chairman, that worries me, and I'm not sure that I can support it. Thank you very much.
Okay. In terms of, just before we continue this, in the slides we had the height description from the last meeting, which was the one we were concerned about. In your handouts tonight, on the back page in the bottom corner, you've got the heights correctly shown, which are what we were shown on the site visit, but they weren't up on that slide. So I'm just so we're all clear. Right, who else? Councillor Higgins, please.
For me, I'm concerned about the boatyard. I know we have a 106, but is there any chance that officers can strengthen that? Because these type of businesses are rare and fine. You know, these are old crafts that we can't really afford to lose. And maybe I'm a bit cynical, but my view is that, as Councillor Bell said, that the new development will be come in and there'll be a noise complaint or something other. I know it says here that there will be some sort of the applicant will be working with, but I really
it actually says it's got to be agreed by the landowner of the boatyard first. And
where because obviously we have to also think in planning for the people that are actually going to live in those buildings once they're built. So are we happy are officers happy that they can give me assurances that this business will still be there? Obviously, the officers give me the business, it still will be there, but not because of the cause of this development. I mean, obviously they could go out of business for other reasons, but...
James,
I can answer the earlier question, which I don't think we could word it any more robustly. I don't think we can make it any stronger than we already have. I genuinely think that, given how strongly worded that Section 106 obligation is, that it would be difficult to refuse this with noise, that it does go back, as the Chairman said, to size bulk issues. I think that is such a strongly worded Section 106 clause, and as stated, it requires the buy-in from the Canals and River Trust, that I think there's enough in that it should give comfort to committee on that issue.
Sorry to come back at you, but what I'm concerned about is that is the third party. That's the owner, but the third party is actually the business. So let's just say, I'm cynical again, enough that the applicant comes up with some sort of deal to support in other areas at the risk of this business. You know, that's what I'm trying to convey here, is that can we actually say, without that in place, this application cannot go forward, or are we saying, it can go forward as long as they agree?
The view I said at pre-application is you need this and the intervening office, so you have that buffer. And with the two, I'm happy with the recommendation of approval, but you need the two.
I think the head of planning has covered that one off.
Yes.
I'm looking. I thought Councillor Yarrow was about to, but he's not. So I'll go Councillor Duncan.
Thank you, Chair. I do have concerns about the boatyard, like my colleague opposite, Councillor Higgins. I recognise that it's only possible to go so far with a 106, but as we know, that doesn't always cover, it isn't always possible to cover every aspect. So I feel slightly uncomfortable about that. Not because I don't think officers haven't done a good job, I think you have. I think you've gone as far as you can, but I think there will be noise issues. As we know from people who live in the area, and they've described there is noise there. They know about it, they're used to it. But we're actually moving in quite a dense development here, not at all similar to adjoining development, which is at a much lower density, when of course it was built at a time when there were much lower densities. So I'm concerned about that. I think it is too high. I found the site visit extremely helpful. It was very good to go down and see that. Also, we need to be aware that the properties that back onto this site in Waterloo Road are masonettes. So there are living rooms, not only on the ground floor, but also on the first floor, that will look out and be impacted by this view. If it were, I take all the points about the design, the reference to wharf architecture, which is to be welcomed. I think that thought has gone into this, and I commend the developers for doing that in that way. I think it is an improvement on the scheme that we had before, but it simply is too high, and there are too many units there, I'm afraid. If it comes down one floor, you can still maintain that appearance. You can still maintain that wharf architecture. You're going to have slightly less units, and I think that's also going to be a benefit, because as people who have used that area will know, there is limited parking, and it can become the parking can become very stressed. And as was pointed out, and it was a very timely reminder by the petitioner speaker, that we've got a very limited bus service here, and because of that, on Sundays it finishes at 5:30, I think it was, and during the week at 8 o'clock. So people coming to visit family or friends, are going to have to arrive by car for the most part. I mean, some of them will arrive by bicycle, possibly, and motorbikes, as Councillor Morgan will remind us. But do we want to put this amount of stress on parking. So on several grounds, I do have concerns about this. I would like to see this scheme. I think it's a good quality scheme, but just reduced in height. Thank you.
I'll then take some more views, because I think we know where we are on the parking front. Let me go to one or two others and then I'll come back. Councillor Edwards, I need to get a sense of where we're going with this, because I think the issues are fairly well known. It's now a question of which way people feel.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a particularly difficult matter. And I certainly agree with Councillor Duncan that if this were one floor down, we wouldn't be having this intensity of debate, and it would become easier. So for me, the issue is, does it or does it not tip over that unacceptable height? And on that, I'm not particularly clear. I do find the overall design quite attractive. I recognise the comments made by Historic England, and I also recognise the expertise of our own officers, who have said that in the context of this setting, it's not out of place. So we have two authoritative bodies, Historic England and our officers, not throwing up any fundamental objection to it. Now, the gables are the bit in point, and we talk about them, but they are three gables across a whole length of development. And whilst they are visible, they do provide some attractiveness to the design, and so I'd hate to see them flattened just to make it acceptable. So I don't think it is just a matter of getting rid of the gables. It would be a matter of a reduction of a whole floor. Overall, though, having been to the site, having looked around, having taken in the character of the area, having walked the surrounding streets to determine whether or not this would be a hugely visible monstrosity or overbearing building from the residential roads, I actually felt that you wouldn't and couldn't be able to see it just walking down the street. The heights of the road, the setback from it, would be such that in my judgment, I didn't think you'd see it, and even the tree cover down the street would mean that the gaps in between the houses, it wouldn't be particularly visible. So the impact on the residential side of the area, I'm not convinced that the harm of this height is so great as for me to say no. On the other side, we're into the industrial feel, when the context of its height, it has some attraction. I don't think it will be unappealing to be sitting in the pub looking across at this building. It will certainly be more appealing than the present site. So, long way of saying I'm on the balance, but my balance is more towards the yes than the no.
Can I bring the head of planning in for some observation?
It was mentioned point by Councillor Duncan that perhaps a story can be taken off this. The reality is that would make it an unviable development proposal. The developer could, of course, then go away and say, well, how could we then make this a viable development proposal? One way would be to reduce the costs of construction of the building. And the reason I mention that is that the way this building is designed with a quality stock brick and this wharf-style architecture is not the cheapest way to build a building. The developer could just do block work, cover it in render. There'll be cheaper ways to erect a building. So the idea that if members were to take forward an idea that this could reappear with a story less, but the same architecture, I don't actually think that's a viable proposition. If this were to be refused and to come back, I don't think you're going to get quite the same scheme. You're going to get something that is not, wouldn't in my view be the same quality, albeit it might be reduced height, but it wouldn't be the same quality of architecture because the developer, to make it viable, would have to cut their costs. That's the reality, I feel.
Okay. Head of Planning's guidance on the table. Can I come back? Or
I just say that has been helpful because it is the quality of the development that it does actually quite impress me. I think the look of it, its design is appealing, and I think it will add value to the area in time.
Can I just hear from those members who haven't said anything at the moment? Because I'm trying to work out where we're going with this. I know Councillor Higgins is a little bit uncomfortable, but can I move down the table and just hear from some of the others, because this is going to have to move in a moment. Councillor Morgan, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Let's be honest, the current site needs flattening. Those sheds are almost falling down. Yes, I agree with Councillor Duncan and Councillor Higgins concerning the boatyard, but I think the way this is built and with the Section 106, we can protect that boatyard. And I think overall this is a good development. It's the way it's been, the architect has planned this. I'm actually quite in favour of it.
Councillor Yarrow, please. You were on the site visit.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yes, I was on the site visit, and as other people have said, it's a very difficult one to actually come to a firm decision. I agree with everything that Councillor Edwards has said, and indeed what Councillor Duncan and Councillor Oswell has said. You can see what a quandary that we find ourselves really in. Viewed from the General Elliot, it will look a very attractive building from the front. From behind, I think that we have to try and allay the fears of the people who live in Waterloo Road. Now, looking at the comparative views that have been given out just before the meeting, it's actually lower from certain viewpoints than the existing building. You don't see the architecture, the peaky bits there at the top. The gables, thank you. Yeah. But they're very necessary, I think, from the front. That gives it its wharf look. And to say we take a story off, it would have to change the whole building structure. It would lose everything. I think it is a remarkably looking building for that location. However, it is a big building, and I have got to make a decision whether you're going to be for or against it. And I have to say, taking everything into consideration, looking at the shadows and everything else, I would err on the side of approval.
Stay, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I went on a site visit as well, and to me it was very helpful. I was quite surprised when looking back at it from the bridge and from various points that it probably wouldn't be all that obtrusive to some of the buildings that we've approved in the past. What's there, we've already been mentioned, it is pretty sort of drab and pretty run down and awful. So the new build would certainly enhance that corner there. So I would probably support the recommendation, Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. Unfortunately, I wasn't on the site visit,
no.
But I do know the site quite well. I've lived in the area all my life, so I do know the site. My view as of last week, and hearing from colleagues who were on the site visit, sort of confirms my view of last week or last meeting, that it is a very nice building, just too big, and I maintain the view that it is still too big, and it needs to be a story lower. If it is a story lower and it is redesigned, it still has to comply with being in the conservation area, being acceptable in conservation terms. So I'm at a similar sort of balanced decision, but I'm falling on the
you're on the against side.
Against side.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm just trying to get where people are on this. Councillor Higgins,
Yeah.
you may need to come off a fence for me.
No, unfortunately, I'm not on the right side for you. But
I'm not on the side. I'm just trying to work out.
you might have to. But anyway, you might have to. I just want some clarification from officers about these gables. I did ask the developer about access to the gables. I'm just mindful that they will be at some point, some smart arse will say, oh, why can't I use a bit of that up there? And I want to make sure that we are sound as a pound. I don't know whether that's sound now, but that they cannot be used.
I think there's an easy answer to your concern.
I think there could be a clever answer. This should be imposed an additional condition designed to address your concern.
Well,
if you're happy to delegate that to officers, I'm sure we could work on.
I would delegate that to you, James, with pleasure. But I I go back to the boat centre, and I'm really, this is my problem. Although we could have facades as those gables rather than gable roofs, but that's another matter. But I'd be happy if there was a further element, if we can, on protecting this business. I really do.
I'm struggling to see, as is the head of planning, I think, what we could possibly add at the moment, but maybe somebody may think of something in a minute.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairman. I haven't thought of anything about the boatyard, actually. I think they've probably gone as far as they can go with the Section 106 agreement and protecting it. But likewise, it is a craft and it does need protecting, and I'd like to see it continue. So I'm going to try and move this forward, Chairman. I'll move refusal on size, height and bulk.
Okay, can I hold that for a second, Councillor?
Yep. Before we did that.
Yes, I do. And it's regarding the office development to the side. Can the officers give me any assurance that this can't be converted into residential by the developer at some later date?
It would require a whole planning application for them to do that, and it would be within the gift of the local authority to refuse such an application.
So there's no permitted rights to do it at all?
No, we've ensured... this planning permission would prevent them being able to convert without a planning application, and then the local authority could obviously refuse that application.
Thank you. That greatly allays concerns. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, Councillor Oswald, you were proposing. Are you about to second? Because I need to move this forward. I don't think we're going to. One more comment, and then I'll move it forward.
Thank you. It's just on this last point that was raised. In fact, Howarth Homes have built very similar development in Useley, and if you remember, there are gables there. And if you remember, they came back, and they are now part of the residential building. So yes, they do need to come back, but this is a tune that's been played before, if I can put it that way.
Possibly, but we can. Yeah, it is within, at least within our control. Yes. Okay, Councillor Oswald I won't flesh out the reason for a minute. I think I want to test the water on this one. Size, height and bulk would be the refusal reason if we're refusing. There are a couple of other bits that would need to go with it, but just that's the principal refusal reason. So you're proposing, do I have a seconder for that? Oh, I've got a choice. Well, I'll take Councillor Duncan as your hand was quickest. Right, all those in favour of overturning the officer recommendation to refuse on the grounds of size, height and bulk, please clearly show now. I have 3 votes for. All those against that recommendation, please clearly show. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I have 1 abstention. Okay, so we've tried one version of this, I better try the other. Would somebody give you a proposal to take you forward the other way around?
I move the officer's recommendation.
With the additional condition requested by Councillor Higgins.
Agreed.
Do you have a seconder, Councillor Morgan? All those in favour, please clearly show. 1, 2, 3, 4. All those against, please clearly show. 3. And do I have an abstention again? All right. 4-3, so that one goes through. Thank you. I'm going to move to Kingsway House, Horton Road, please. Then item 7.
Thank you, Chair. Kingsway House. This is outline planning permission, application for outline planning permission for the erection of a Part 4, Part 5-storey block of 34 new residential units with associated car parking and amenity space, and involving the demolition of the existing commercial buildings. As I said, this is an outline application, and details of means of access and scale are being considered at this stage, with appearance, landscaping and layouts reserved for subsequent approval. This is the site, highlighted in red. You'll see that it's also on the Grand Union Canal and off with an access off Horton Road. That's an aerial view of the site. And this is a constraints plan, and you can see that there's no particular constraints overlapping with the site. And that's another site plan showing the footprints of the surrounding buildings. And this is a photo of the site. So you'll see that there's an adjoining development around it. That's a Clearview development, and that's the access road running up from Horton Road towards the canal. Our site is towards the rear on the right, so as you can see there's some white buildings. That's our site, and you'll see, apologies, it's not a particularly clear photograph, but you can see the Clearview development in the foreground and along the left-hand side. That's a view of the entrance, the access road from Horton Road. Again, you can see our site a bit further along, so a similar view to the one we've just seen. That's a view of the adjoining Clearview development taken from inside the site. So that boundary wall is between the site and the Clearview development, and the position that photograph is taken from is roughly adjacent to the canal. And there's another view of the entrance of the access road from Horton Road. And this is the layout of the scheme. As I said, this is an outline application with only means of access and the scale of the residential development for determination at this stage. Indicative elevations and layouts have been provided. I'll just show you. Well, I think the red square in the bottom left-hand corner is the proposed development, and the plans around it are of the Clearview development that we've seen has been largely constructed now. I'll keep flicking through those until we get to some indicative elevations. This is a tracking diagram showing the route in from the Horton Road into the site, along the access road into the site. Some more tracking diagrams. Okay, the elevations are actually in the design and access statements. So they show a building that is roughly similar in height, massing and style as the Clearview development around. Now, we're not considering that at this stage. They're showing that's one way it could be built. But what we are approving is the height, 4 and 5 stories, and the means of access. So there is no land use policy objection to the principle of residential development on this site, given the town centre location, which is identified as a growth area, and will be the focus for future housing development. There is no land use policy objection to the principle of residential use development of the site, given given its location. The proposal provides a regeneration opportunity to improve the character and appearance of the canal side, and the proposal is considered to be acceptable in regards to access and the scale of residential development, and its impact on adjoining neighbours. The applicant has agreed to the heads of terms for a Section 106 agreement, and that's a £9,600 contribution or an in-kind contribution towards construction training, a financial contribution of £12,500 towards air quality monitoring, a travel plan including a £20,000 bond, and a financial contribution of £17,000 towards improvement of the canal towpath, which runs along the front of the development. And we do also have a agreement for a 35% affordable housing by Hadroom. So the outline application is therefore recommended for approval, subject to conditions and a Section 106 agreement. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, we don't have a lot to consider because most of it's reserved. Could I just the canals and river trust have made some observations about the creation of a sort of cannoning effect along the canal, and I know that the final design is subject to condition 2. Could we add just an informative to the applicant to remind them of the concerns of the Canals and River Trust? I'm sure it will be picked up, but I think it will be explicit. Anyone got any other issues with this one? Bear in mind there's so little that we've got. Somebody move?
I would just request bringing forward into the either condition or informative the observations of the Canal Trust about preventing...
Just done.
Sorry,
sorry, I've just done that to pull it in.
Shows you I wasn't paying attention.
Well,
I can now confess.
In that case, can someone move this forward for me?
Move the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favour, please clearly show. That one's approved. Thank you very much. I move to item 8, Baltimillion, Green Hill Road, Harefield, which is retention repositioning of modular buildings and a single-storey side extension.
Thank you, Chair. This is a site plan. You can see it's a bowling club. It forms part of the wider Taylor's Meadow playing fields and recreation ground. The application is to remove, well, there's an aerial view. It is in the green belt, as you can see from the constraints plan. There's another site plan. If I quickly flick through these, I think if I show you some photos. So that's a picture of across the bowling green towards the existing clubhouse. Again, it's not super clear in the photo, but that's the modular building there, adjacent to the clubhouse. And if I go reverse, that's the existing layout. Sorry, so you can see there's two modular buildings actually to one side, and the proposal. There we go. Proposal is to reorganise the site, so replace one of those temporary buildings with a more permanent structure, and to extend the clubhouse to the side of the clubhouse. Right, and there you see a colour photo, so you can see that it's roughly the footprint doesn't change that much. We get a nice looking building, and the site does take a little bit of that green space. Again, the photo's not particularly clear, but you can see that this is a view from the wider playing field of the hedge that forms a boundary between the hut and the playing field. There's a cutout there. They'll be removing that hedge and moving the boundary into the playing field, so squaring off the site. And there's a condition that hedge is replaced and replanted. But we're happy that in open space terms, in Greenbelt terms, the application works, and we're happy to recommend approval. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Oswald?
Yes, thanks very much, Chairman. I'll move the officer's recommendation.
Councillor Higgins, do you want to say something, or are you going to second it?
No, I want to second it, thank you.
Oh, thanks, all right then. Unless anyone's got any objection, I'm not sensing anybody going to jump their hand up. Right, in that case, we have it moved and seconded. All those in favour, please clearly show. That one's approved. Thank you very much. I move to item 9, the arena at Stockley Park.
Thank you, Chair. This is the arena at Stockley Park. This is a proposal for an 81-bed hotel to be built partly over on stilts over the existing car park for the arena. That's an aerial view of the site. You can see the car parks. You can see the L-shaped arena building. Part of that is a Virgin Active Leisure Centre. You see the round amphitheatre in the sort of corner of the site. You can see it's all in the green belt. If I keep flicking through, because there's some useful. So these are drawings of what we've got at the moment, which is the car park, I don't know if you call that an amphitheatre, and there's some elevations of the existing building. These are some detailed drawings, but I think if I just take members through to some of the applicant has provided some CGIs which show existing and proposed views, which I think are quite useful. You can see that's the appearance of the hotel in plan form. If I take you through to these drawings here, so that's a view of the existing site from the access road with the lake on the right hand side. So you can just make out I think we call that the rotunda, which is the conical roofed building at one end, and that's the arena built complex there. So that's as is. If I click on, you'll see that there is the proposed is the view that you'd have of the proposed hotel once built. If I click to the next one, this is a view from Bennettsfield Road across the lake towards the site. The site is in here. So if I click to the next one, you'll see the hotel appears there. This is the existing view from the rear of the arena. So that's the arena building just behind that bund there. Next view, so you can see the hotel building. That's what you'll see of it from that view. And then finally, this is a view from the highest point of the golf course, which adjoins the site. So you can see that's the Stockley Park, wider Stockley Park business park. There's quite a lot of buildings there. Our site is roughly in there, and it actually shows that this is the view with the building, the proposed building there, and you can barely make it out. It's roughly there. So in Greenbelt terms, we're satisfied that it has an acceptable impact in terms of views from the Greenbelt into the site. And we're happy to recommend this for approval.
There is an addendum on this one, in particular moving the car parking conditions into the S106, because to make them part of the overall Stockley Park car parking management strategy, which seems a more sensible way to do it. Anybody got any views on this one? Councillor Higgins?
I'm just trying to get the plan. Can we go back to that before?
Yep. Can, of course. Stop.
So I think that's probably the clearest. So you'll see, if I click on my red thing, at the bottom you see that round part of the sort of amphitheatre in the corner there, and the car park.
Building's at the bottom, and then the hotel comes out from it, effectively.
So you've got this sort of T-shaped structure that wraps around one of the existing wings. That is first floor. So that's first floor. So ground floor is actually on. Sorry.
Still over the car park.
Yeah. So that's the ground floor. So you can see the car park. Most of the car park stays in place underneath the footprint of the proposed hotel, and then that's the first floor above.
Okay.
Okay, so there's no conference facilities or anything there.
No.
Sorry, Chairman. Also, can we protect the car parking underneath as a condition, so it doesn't get converted into some sort of...
Well, the whole car parking has been moved into the S106 as part of the overall parking management for the site.
Sorry. Yeah, so that's what I'm trying to say. So that is secure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the whole point of putting it in there, to make sure it forms part of that overall site picture. No. No, that is noted. I will be drawing that to people's attention. Any other comments on this one, Councillor Duncan?
I don't have so much a problem with this being development in the green belt and all the rest of it, but it is just a very ugly building. And when you think that Stockley, I know that it was originally built and they were cheap buildings and all the rest of it, but since that time we've had Norman Foster designing buildings there. There have been buildings of some quality, and this just looks like a very, I don't know, cheap, nasty form of development. And the lightness, you know, that there is around a lot of the structure there, is not at all effective. This isn't in character with anything, not with the nature. I mean, it was a landmark building. It was opened by Prince Charles or something, the place. And this seems to be, couldn't we just have something of a bit better quality? It is a landmark business park in Hillingdon, for heaven's sake. I mean, Stockley is, well known. It's an internationally known thing, and I just think this looks very cheap and unpleasant and out of character. It's, powder-coated metal with a bit of timber cladding. I mean, it's not good design. It's not going to look anything, is it? And it's going to weather appallingly. Sorry about this.
If I just quickly cite a line from the conservation officer, where the new building links with existing, materials are replicated to ensure a smooth transition between the two structures. So the conservation officer did take a slightly different view, obviously.
Yes, well, often we do have differences of view on here. That's quite true. And I don't want to say anything against another person, but I mean, looking at that, you only have to look at the pictures. You don't need to know anything about planning. And if you showed a member of the public that, they would not think that was good. The other thing is that I've had issues, and I'm sure other councillors have, about people with disabilities requiring wheelchair access, having difficulty parking to get to some of the facilities at Stockley. And this was taken up with the manager, who I believe was going to make those more spaces available. And obviously with a hotel there will be an allocation, but I hope that will also incorporate an increased allocation for people who do come there to use the restaurant and other facilities.
Probably slightly beyond our ability to... we could
not if they're going to be taking over the whole of the management of the car park. This is the ideal opportunity to raise that issue, that there is insufficient disabled parking. We've heard from disabled residents who've had to come away from Stockley, have gone there for family celebrations and things like this at the restaurant, and have, not been able to access them. And so that's why I raised the point, because if the management of this is now being incorporated into this and all under one heading, let's this an opportunity to get it right.
I'll take a quick response and then I'm going to move this.
Quick response. The number of disabled spaces on this particular overall site has gone up, and they're in a cluster around the entrance, and 12 spaces are now provided.
It is just a tiny matter I have also on the parking. It is to what protection do we have that the existing provision for parking for the gym users and restaurants and that are going to be maintained, and the hotel doesn't overspill from its 20 into 30, 40, 50 places.
I think we can only pick that up as part of the S106 because it's all one car parking.
Yeah,
that's the whole point.
Yeah, the thought process of moving to the 106 is to address all these kind of concerns that I quite understand in terms of the complexities of that site, to ensure that the parking is dealt with in an appropriate way.
Fine, as long as then the scheme is agreed such that it limits the parking at the hotel to 20, I'm absolutely fine, thank you.
Councillor Higgins.
Just a small thing about the design. I'm hoping, Councillor Duncan, that it's just the way the print has come out. But can we give authority to the head of planning to make sure that the quality of the materials are of the highest quality? And that,
if I may, Chair, condition 21, details of finish, on page 11. Sorry, wrong one. Sorry, beg your pardon. Yeah, that's it.
17.
There you go.
It does sometimes help in these circumstances to have an informative that reinforces the expected design quality.
I think that would be an appropriate way forward.
It makes a small difference, but it sometimes it can help.
Can we do that?
Yeah, I think. Can someone move this one?
Happy to move this, the officer's recommendation subject to the additional informative.
And as amended by the addendum.
Thank you.
All those in favour, please clearly show. That's 7 with 1 against. Thank you, Councillor Duncan. Okay, we've done it. Item 10 is Brunel, and Councillor Curling is leaving us. I don't think this needs a presentation. This is allowing 8 more spaces to be retained, but they are within the overall parking cap set for the site, which I think is the important bit. And with 2,088 spaces, I'm not sure the 8 would we notice much anyway. Someone move it for me. Moved, seconded. All those in favour, please clearly show. Thank you very much indeed. And that's 8 minutes past 7. Thank you very much.